We got a legend on the channel today, and I don't think you could have guessed ahead of time what faction we're going to talk about, so let's jump into it. What is up, guys? MtgJedi here, joined with me by the one and only, gotta be #1 in all of your raid hearts, Hell Hades. How you doing today? Super pumped to have you on the channel, my dude.
Yeah, I'm doing really well. Yeah, I'm super pumped to be here, man. It's been too long since we teamed up.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who are new to the channel, you know, I'm MtgJedi. I do this every day, and we're in the middle of a series here where I'm having a different content creator on for every faction. You can hit up that playlist later on, and we're going to go do another video over on Hell Hades' channel. Make sure you check that out, but you probably watched that one before this one. So, thank you for joining us here today. And I'm super pumped to get into this with you. What made you choose High Elves today?
Look, so I just thought to myself, which faction do I first go after? If I'm trying to clear faction wars, which is my #1 to get done to kind of like give me that boost to then start doing some more? So I figured, why not? Let's jump into High Elves. Yeah, we all get a few of these for free, so we got a couple of starters to get going, and yeah, I think it's actually a pretty sparse faction, you know?
Yeah, it really is.
Slim.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this is one of the factions that's like the face of Raid with Arbiter and everything. But we don't get champions that often in this faction, do we?
No, in fact, I was even surprised when I started to look through and do a bit of prep. I was like, actually, where are the rares and the epics? Like, there's so few. So, you know, obviously there's some big hitters in there, but definitely trying to kind of like, you know, focus on the ones that make some sense. I think it's still going to help people.
Yeah, absolutely right on. Well, I like to start this with just our favorite champions in the faction. So if you want to start us off here, who do you have at the top of your list favorites in this faction?
Yeah, I guess I've got a bit of a soft spot actually for the Royal Huntsman, the legendary.
Really?
Well, I just feel like he's a fun champion.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say, you know, this should be your first 60. It's not that type of favorite. More around, he's just got a very cool A3, which can do obscene damage. You know, can one-shot any tank in the game. Yeah, it's just very fun, honestly. And his A2 is actually pretty useful. He does decent damage on his A2 as well.
yeah.
Also, you actually don't really need to book this dude to get him going. You know, if you're someone who's kind of just playing the game fairly casually, his A2 does the job without books. His A3 does the job without books. So, yeah, I just feel like, I don't know, I've had him for a long time. He kind of pops into teams now and then just as a bit of a meme, but he's a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Definitely. And I still see, you know, every once in a while he'll rotate back into the meta in high-end arena because of this 100% ignore defense. And I think, you know, I was watching your comments on the new gear sets. I think this could be a great opportunity to use that new live arena gear set.
Yeah.
It's going to add all that crit damage that you need.
Definitely. I think I mean, I don't know if he's meta right now, but certainly even like a month ago, he was back in the plat level meta, you know, as one of the kind of maybe 4 or 5 champions that does this 100% ignore defense.
Yeah.
So yeah, just generally he pops up now and then, and he's always fun to do a video on because he hits for some big numbers.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to shock your socks off right now because I just have a soft spot in my heart for her, and that is Pixneal.
No.
Yes,
really?
sir. Yeah. I've been meaning to do a new video on her after her buff because like nobody knows this, but like she's got secret good multipliers.
What do you mean by that?
She can smack.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. And like her kit is actually not that bad. Like the AoE freeze, I know we wish it was the 4-hitter, 5-hitter, whatever now. But and then her A2 is just like a really, really good support mechanic. And then her A1 is still bad. But, you know, she's much better than people give her credit for. And I feel like I need to defend that statement, obviously. But she can definitely help you. I don't recommend throwing your whole library of books into her. Just use her as
That's
is.
the worst thing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Cooldown on the books, cooldown on the reading,
Yeah.
and yeah, maybe she should get a bit more love.
Honestly, if that's the only thing that Plarium changed when they buff her was just cut her books in half, that would have been a gigantic buff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
I
6
guess
books on
interestingly
the
for the topic we're
A1.
talking about today, when it's faction wars,
Hmm.
then her kit's actually very good. Like I think her,
Right.
anyone who's got really good control in an ability is going to help you with faction wars a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, are there any champions in this faction who you would say are like unusable or who are kind of a trap and we want to avoid? I'm sure you wanted to put Pixniel on that list. You can throw her under the bus if you want. But anybody else that you would say like, man, just like this champion is so hard to use, not very good. Anybody who you want to call out there?
yeah, so I maybe in the epics, I feel like Exemplar, maybe, and Jingle Hunter are both maybe very early game Jingle Hunter, but other than that, I would not build this champion out.
There's so
Um,
many other people you can use for that speed aura now. That used
yeah,
to be his go-to because we don't get this speed aura anymore. But I totally agree. Both those champions are very difficult to use.
yeah, literally the only like situation I can think of using Exemplar would be Dark Fey. If Dark Fey, sorry, if you're trying to activate a freeze on someone on your team, like, and therefore you're using
Yeah.
Dark Elhain to like blitz. It's like such a niche,
Mm-hmm.
specific tactic, and that's the only thing because she's got a good,
Mm-hmm.
100% chance to place that freeze.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just it just feels so weak as a void epic.
Yeah.
Yeah, compare her to someone like a Kemptum who's just come out, or some of
Right.
those other void epics. It's like this is not a champion on the same game.
No.
So yeah, feels
Not
very
even
weak.
like there are plenty of rares that are better than her. I
Yeah,
mean, Armature's better than her at uncommon, but another one I
sure.
definitely want to mention is Marksman. This is my
Yeah,
least
he would have
favorite
been.
champion in the entire game. And I
Okay.
did use him one time on a free to play account, and just what a trap. He just does
Yeah,
nothing. He looks like his kit will do things with the poison and the turn meter fills and stuff. He just does nothing except waste your resources. So I would definitely say to avoid him.
yeah, I can definitely agree with that. He was like, he was on my radar, and I was like, do I call him out as well? I can't really call out three, but yeah, I
You
agree
can
with that.
call out as many as you want, my dude. If half the faction's bad, then we just call them out as don't use
Yeah.
those champions. But anyway, let's move on to sort of like the other half. Like, who are the champions we're looking to here? Not just for faction wars, but for other areas of the game.
I mean, I can't like not call out Reliquary Tender here. I just feel like so on my free to play series I'm doing right now, she came in. She's already someone I've taken up to 50. Don't feel like you necessarily need to 6-star this champion, but you could.
Agreed.
I don't think it's a waste of resources to do that, but I don't feel like you need to do that. Just a really, really dependable rare.
Mm,
Got a full cleanse on it in her kit, which for a load of Doom Tower content, that's really useful. A revive ability as well, and a reasonable cooldown, and some healing going on. Just good stats, like pretty tanky for a rare. I just feel like most accounts, until you get towards mid to end game, can make use of this champion, especially at 50. And yes, and for faction wars, having that revive ability just so good to get you 3 stars as well. Just all in all, really good rare, I think.
yeah, totally agree. She was one of my first void rares. I
Right.
started a new free to play series on my channel as well, but I started it on your original start date, so I'm like a week ahead of you guys.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Did you
but
take it to 60 or did you use her as 50?
no, I completed the Python fusion.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just, hits the same thing except a legendary version.
Yeah.
She's just a rare version of him,
Sure.
and that says something, when you're comparing a rare to a legendary.
Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure.
I gotta call out Apothecary here.
Yeah.
I just got him on my free to play, 6-starred him, immediate impact. I 6-starred him over all of the other epics that were choices. I don't have other legendaries to choose from, but I 6-starred him over all of the epic choices, and he's still amazing in this game. You
Yeah.
can still find a use for his increased speed and his heal, and the triple hitter on the A1 underrated, I think, at this point.
So do you? Because I've actually got this situation right now. I've already got High Cartoon 6-starred. I've literally just pulled Apothecary.
Mhm.
Are you saying, like, you know what? I'm still 6-star in Apothecary anyway for
Yeah.
the additional impact? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I started with Deacon on my free to play,
Okay.
and my clan boss team right now is Apothecary and Deacon, and they
Yeah.
just get so many extra hits. Like I've tried
Yeah.
a
Sure.
lot of other ways to increase the damage, but right now I'm two keying Nightmare with Apothecary and Deacon in the team.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, such a good rare.
Oh
Just
yeah.
literally, like, pulled his way through the, like, test of time, and he just keeps going,
Keeps
keeps being
going.
relevant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So I guess
think
let's move on to an. Oh, sorry. Go on.
no, I was just gonna say real quick with Eris. I love this champion, but she can be some trap sometimes as well. I see people 6-star her who are not using her in their clan boss team, and I just feel like that's just a little unnecessary.
Feels like
Before
a bit
we,
of a waste if you're not doing like a Demitha type of comp. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So who do you like in the epics then?
Yeah. So I mean, I've got to call out the old school Tyrell. Just such a good champion. Is it interesting? So I was looking at faction wars generally, and I was like, do you need a decreased defense champion? And I don't think that you do actually. I think they just speed up the fights a lot. It
Right.
makes it a lot easier to do to get through the faction. It means that less time in the fight means there's less time for you to die, basically. Um,
I
but
think
yeah,
one of
this
the
guy
things that
just
the
brings a lot.
decreased defense does is alleviates the control that you need. So if you
Yeah,
don't have a good, solid controlling champion for those waves, then putting a decreased defense champion in there is going to speed that up and put less pressure on your champion.
for sure. And what I like about this type of champion, so what you can do in faction wars as a quick tip is just get your decreased defense out there, kind of, blow up 2 or 3 of the enemies, and then just go kind of like come off of auto, A1, 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 get your decreased defense back for the next wave, and away you go. But yeah, Tyrell particularly, AoE drop defense. It's also got a decreased attack, which is nice for the bosses. And he's got a turn meter drop, which is not insignificant on the A3. People forget about this on his A3. It's a
Yeah.
really good skill, actually, especially when you're talking faction wars and some of the bosses you've got to deal with. So just an all round, still a great epic champion, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got to mention my girl from our faction games, a
Yeah,
couple
definitely.
months
Yeah.
ago, Andresia. I would love to get her on the free to play. I really love the the kit. It's just such an interesting and unique kit. Basically a buff strip, although just decreasing the duration. And then the stun, similar to Tyrell's ability.
Yeah.
Her A1 is actually relevant, helping you with a little bit of survivability there. And then the passive is such the cool part. As long as you go first, you have this Necrit like ability to
Yeah. It's
protect
nice.
your squishy damage dealers. And these are the type of champions that we're calling out that are not just useful in faction wars, right? You're going to find uses for them all throughout the game. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why High Elves is good. Because the champions you're 6-starring, the champions you're investing in, they're going to help you other places?
Yeah. And I guess someone like that even could be run again as a level 50 because
Yeah,
the cool parts of her kits still work at 50. It's not like normally it's like I need to 6-star because I need the damage to come through and all that type of stuff. Well, actually, her kit here to protect others don't have to be 6-star. It helps, but you don't have to be to make that stuff work. Um,
yeah,
yeah. So
especially with the revivers we have available in this faction, you can use a lot more champions at 50 than you would normally?
yeah, yeah. I
All
got to
right.
call out as well here, like Skaramis as a new epic.
Uh-huh.
Damn, really good faction war champion. Like the A3 with an AoE provoke. There's not many epics in the game that will give you 100% provoke
True.
when booked out, but also puts counter attack out as well. So when provoked, will actually come in, try and counter attack with the A1, which yeah, it's got a bit of turn meter control going on, or a stun, which again for faction wars, it's like it's a huge skill.
Yeah.
Just being able to control all of the enemy wave and let your team do their thing. It's really useful. And the A2 is not bad as well. Yeah, just generally, I think a great faction war champ.
Yeah, I love seeing those HP or defense based champions as well. Makes them easily survivable. This guy seems like an auto include if you have him on your account. Definitely for
Yeah.
sure. Well, and then, of course, the legendaries, everybody's not going to have all of these legendaries. So Are there any that we should like avoid for faction wars that are going to be problematic, even if we're just using them at 50?
Avoid them. Ah, that's a good question.
Because what I've found is like most legendaries are usable in faction wars, but there's always those couple champions where you're like, no, don't even waste your time. Is there anybody who we think is, sort of not even worth using at 50 in this faction?
I mean, I don't really think there is. Like,
Yeah.
in terms of the faction, I feel like any of them can be relevant to come in level 50 and give you a bit of a boost. Whether it's a support type like a Lysandra or an Arbiter that's keeping you moving, or whether it's someone who's going to be bringing you some control. That's what I tend to look for if I'm running a 50. Do they bring me a bit of control like a Shiramani with a freeze and
Hmm.
that type of stuff? I think most of them could be good. And maybe you would class Alexander as someone that's perhaps not as worth to run at 50 just because generally I would use him as a damage dealer. So I prefer a damage dealer to be a 6-star if I can do it. But
Yeah.
it still brings an AoE decreased defense, which, at 50, if you don't have one, would be pretty useful. What do you think? Is there anyone that you perhaps would steer away from?
No, I don't think so. The only one would be Elinarl, and even her, I think she's pretty usable. She's just not going to be great. Like I've tried to use her on her own at 50, and she's just very difficult to get to use, especially on auto, because she just takes these turns dealing damage from all poisons, and there's no poisons. You know,
Yeah, she's a bit stupid. Yeah.
yeah, so other than her, but she's great for other areas of the game. You just have to be careful about her for faction wars. And the A1 HP burn is still usable, so that would be the only one that I would be cautionary about, especially if you don't have a reason to build her. I think, if you don't have a lot of other poison champions, then she's probably one that maybe not even good for 50. Because we have
Yeah,
so
it's
many
fair
other good
actually.
options too.
Yeah, there's actually, now you said it, there's not really poisonous in this faction to pair her with. So it's not like
Yeah.
you can actually get the best out of her kit. She will do some decent damage to bosses and stuff with poisons and burns going on, but
Hmm.
you're right. She's
Yeah.
probably weak without a decent kind of pairing.
Yeah. On that free to play account I did a long time ago, I tried to use marksman with her, and
Right.
it was just steamrolling the disaster after disaster. So, all right.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about what kind of faction war team would we want to be assembling that's sort of like a generic that everybody could sort of apply into here. Who would we be starting with?
Yeah, well, I think first on the team sheet, if you could do it, it's probably Arbiter. If you've actually done the Arbiter missions, I'm not saying you need her in your faction war team, but full team revive pretty much equals 3 stars. If you can keep her fast, pretty tanky, then she's just going. She's healing and she's reviving. Just so like she's so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
She's so good for this.
She might be free, but she's still one of the best champions in the game. And I
Yeah,
think
she's still
that,
super relevant. Yeah.
yeah, I think that when you get her is a good time to start thinking about clearing factions, like the timing of it. Now, it
Yeah,
depends
true.
on how many shards you're opening, right? You can clear factions before that. But generally speaking, the time frame of getting her is when you want to start thinking about clearing factions. And I think that obviously when you have her, she's going to definitely be in your team. So all of that combines together to just really good timing. And then, have you ever run Reliquary Tender alongside her in the faction?
I did when I did a free to play series previously, but only really because I didn't have many champions for that faction. So,
Okay.
she was there, she was level 50, and she just kind of came in more as a cleanser and a healer. So,
Hmm.
a cleanse ability actually on the bosses is pretty damn useful. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's more about the A2 than the revive actually when you're running her alongside an arbiter. I don't think there's any harm in that. But you do need to one thing I'd say with faction was you need quite a nice balance in your
Hmm.
team, and you'd probably be starting to sway the balance too heavy towards healing and reviving at that point. I think one champion to do that's probably enough, but you certainly could if you've got one kind of built out to 50. I think.
Yeah, I think the same would probably be said of Apothecary. Definitely can do it, but don't need to. But if he's
Yeah,
already there, you might as well, right? So
Yeah. I
then,
mean, probably that's a better fit, I would say. Like Apothecary and Arbiter would be a better fit for me than going double revive, because at least
hmm,
Apothecary's keeping you moving quickly, does a different type of speed buff to what Arbiter's doing anyway.
mm-hmm,
So in fact, I think he pairs quite nicely with her. But
okay,
again, you need to make sure there's something else coming in then that's going to back it up.
yeah, yeah. So if we had an option, I think we would definitely put a Tyrell in there.
Yeah, makes
Um,
sense. Yeah.
is there who else would we love to be putting in here at the epic level?
Well, I think I would want some control at this point. So I actually feel like Skaramis is really, really useful in that kind of provocability, HP based champion, so easy to keep alive, and um, and actually hits hard as well. Like I think the kit is decent, and I really like this one for Faction Wars.
Yeah,
Probably, I'd say because it's quite new champion, I'd say there's less people that are going to have Skaramis available,
right.
and if you don't, I think Thanassel does a similar style of job, just a bit worse.
Okay.
In terms of, does he do a similar job? No, I thought he was a sleeper. Actually, he's not. I'm wrong.
I mean, he has
He
the
only,
A1 sleep,
yeah,
so if you have him booked, you can just like pew pew all along the lines and then single target the people who aren't asleep. But this faction does not have a lot of control.
oh, I was thinking of Zelatar when I was actually looking at his kit. No, he's wrong. I was wrong. I was thinking he had
Oh,
the AoE sleep, but he doesn't.
yeah.
Um, actually, they lack quite a lot in terms of control in the epics,
Hmm.
don't they? It's not that great.
Yeah, like somebody even like Battle Sage with the AoE A1, you might want to bring in a stun set,
Stun set, yeah,
but really
yeah,
there's not even a lot of good stun set champions in this faction. But the nice thing is, being one of the easiest factions, you don't need a lot to complete
yeah,
this one. Once you have Arbiter to revive everybody, as long as you got some kind of person for damage, you're going to get through it eventually, as long as Arbiter is alive.
yeah.
Any of
Because
the
you've not got those really hard waves of you in this
no.
faction. You don't
Mm-mm.
have like the triple bout waves, that type of thing to deal with. So actually, as long as you've just got a decent kind of, almost hard wearing team, you will get through it.
Right, right. I think a lot of times people rely on Royal Guard for damage just because he's such an obvious. If you have him, you're definitely building him. He's going to be useful in a million areas in the game,
Yeah,
and his kit is just great. You know, he's got the 4 hitter decreased speed, the enemy max HP for damage,
yeah.
and then the A1 decreased defense to sort of speed up your run a little bit. So I think a lot of people rely on him for damage. But now with so many champions in the game, I feel like a lot of these epics are becoming harder to get.
True, true. Yeah, I mean, if people have had accounts for a little while, then Deliana might be on the account, and Deliana, even at level 50, can pump some
Hmm.
good damage, and it's AOE damage. So definitely not someone to write off if you've got her in your account. In fact, things like block buffs is really nice for faction wars as well, just to kind of help you through the waves. But Deliana hard carried me through my kind of previous free to play account for this type of stuff. Really tanky kind of base stats as well.
Yeah, right on, right on. I'm gonna try on my free to play to use Luthia. I don't think she's that good, but she does have an AoE decreased speed. She does have a chance to freeze on her A2, and then she technically can place poisons. I'm not taking her above 50, but I'm going to try to use her and just see how it goes. I've not used her on any takeovers or anywhere really in the game, but I'm going to try and we'll see how that goes. But that's a work in progress.
Yeah, I think she does a reasonable kind of hit of damage. I think she's pretty good for that, but
Okay.
not really anything more than like, say, if you had El Hain, I think El Hain would do a similar amount of damage. I think El Hain for a damage dealer in this faction is actually not a bad one to call out as well. It's obviously a starter champion.
Yeah.
She's pretty. I'd say she's pretty vanilla. Like her
Yeah.
kit is straight up like I'm just gonna hit. That's what you're getting from me. Don't worry about anything else. But she does a decent job of it.
Yeah.
Again, when you're getting a bit further up, if she was 50, she'd do okay damage. If she's 60, then she's doing good damage,
Yeah.
especially if you've already got a drop defense out there. But um, yeah, when you've got Arbiter, when you've got Apothecary, hopefully someone like a Tyrell as well, then I don't feel like you need a whole bunch more 60s to get this done. It's just
Yeah.
can you just kind of push your way through it?
Yeah. This is definitely a faction you can clear with multiple 50s. 100% sure. Last
Yeah.
champion I want to mention before we talk about our individual faction war teams is Endalia, just because I don't know what she does. Do you have any experience with this champion?
No, so again, pretty new, but I think the AoE decrease attacks decent on the AE2 HP based champion again. So
Hmm.
quite tanky, quite easy to keep alive. Um,
Chance to provoke on the A1, probably
yeah, and
needed.
she's kind of got this passive ability, which when you've got decreased attack out there, she would
Hmm.
counterattack to then enable that provoke. So I think her kit's kind of again quite interesting. Again, if you don't have champions that are really helping you take any sort of control of enemies, then she can do a bit of a job. But I wouldn't use her outside of faction wars, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. So while I'm pulling up my faction war team, you want to talk through who you use in this faction?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I use Bellinor now. So since he had his buff, Bellinor's now like top tier. Really, really good in this faction. So AoE decrease defense and weaken. I then move into Ethos, who just blows up the wave. I then go on to wave 2, where Royal Huntsman gives me his decreased defense. Ethos blows up the wave. So basically, 3-man team to do most of the work. I've actually got Tatora in for a big single target damage dealer against the boss. And I think I've also got Rowanus does some
Really
pretty heavy damage as well. Yeah. So
interesting.
it's kind of like full. I'm just blowing it up. Like
So you don't
it
use
is
Royal
pretty
Guard in your
obscene.
team at all?
No, I don't for this. No,
Huh.
no.
Interesting.
It's full gold. This one. It's pretty disgusting. I think my team for this one.
Okay, well, my team's actually pretty free to play friendly. I
Is
got
it?
the
Yeah.
Tatura Fusion. I had Yannicka from the shop, Alexander from the login, Arbiter from the
Yeah.
missions, and then we got the Royal Guard in there. So,
Nice.
like of all of the OP teams I have for Faction Wars, this one is, pretty reasonable if you've been playing for a while. Then you
Yeah.
probably have those champions.
Do you tend to farm like stage 21 on a daily basis, or do
No,
you go down to 20?
I do 20.
Yeah, same.
It's just such a small, like, there's a difference, but it's just such a small difference. I'd rather shave a couple minutes off of my total dailies than farm
Yeah.
21.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
Great.
what would you like to say as we're wrapping up the video here? Any cool new things you got coming on your channel? Anything you want to say before we wrap up and get out the door?
I really just wanted to say, like, thanks for having me on. It's really cool to do this type of series because I think I think it's almost like the forgotten content, Faction Wars.
Yeah.
Not that people forget to do it. It's just it doesn't really get covered a lot on people's channels. So I think this is a really good series to do. And yeah, it's a blast, obviously, coming on and doing it. I think we're talking about a similar type of thing on my channel where we're going a bit more around the general makeup of how to do Faction Wars, which I think is worth coming back to check again because you can almost like use that alongside these videos you're doing, which are kind of like the deep dive.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. No brand new projects coming just yet, but I'm sure there will be some along the way. That's the way it tends to go. Yeah,
Yeah, right
yeah.
on, right on. All right, man. Well, it's been a blessing and an honor to have you on the channel. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. Make sure you guys, I don't know, for some reason you don't know who Hell Hades is. Obviously, you need to go sub to him. Make sure you check out the collab we're going to go do on his channel as well. All those links will be in the description of this video and in a pinned comment. And, have a good day. Go check out some other videos in the series, and we'll catch you guys in the next video.